I would call this phone the desktop PC compared to laptops. Let's discuss the Redmagic 11 Pro and its performance when it comes to gaming. So while we're unboxing the global version of the Redmagic 11 Pro, let's run over the specifications so you can see what you get with the phone as well. It comes with a 6.85 inch 144Hz AMOLED display with a peak brightness of 1800 nits and a boost of 200 nits in bright conditions. A huge 7500 mAh battery that you can charge up at 80 watt. Wireless and wireless charging is also supported. For RAM, it goes from 12GB up to 24TB. And for memory, it's UFS 4.1 Pro with 256GB up to 1TB. And then the gaming part of this phone, the reason I call this the desktop PC to laptops. Not only does it have a fan to help cool that pretty hot Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, it also on top of that has liquid cooling. A world's first liquid cooling in a phone. And not only that, you didn't lose the vapor chamber either. It also has a huge vapor chamber on top of that. But we will see what it means in terms of performance. And if you want to have proper audio, you can also use the headphone jack, which I'm really glad to see, even more so for a phone like this. We also have some side triggers as well for your games and an ultrasonic fingerprint scanner. For the camera, naturally this is the part where you can see that their focus isn't on that. We have a pretty acceptable 50 megapixel main sensor with a 1/1.55 inch sensor size, f-stop of 1.9 and 23mm equivalent. Next to it, we have a 50 megapixel ultra wide with a 1/2.88 inch sensor size and 14mm equivalent. And then of course a useless 2 megapixel camera that we are going to ignore. Naturally, the front facing camera is under the display and you can actually hardly tell it's there. We have three versions. We have Cryo, Night Freeze, which is the version that you can see on tech tablets, and of course this version, the Sub-Zero. Now, naturally, we all seen the news about the liquid cooling on the phone itself that should help keep this phone cooler and run for a longer amount of time on higher speeds. Now, for myself, using the toughest test I can think of is 3D Mark, and I had a stability of 81.1%, the bass loop of 8061, and at its lowest 6539, and with the FPS at a peak of 59 with the lowest at 28. Now I'm giving you these numbers so you can compare it directly to another phone that uses the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 as well, the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max. Not only is it more stable than the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, the scores are also quite different, where the highest loop on the Xiaomi is lower than the lowest loop on the Redmagic 11 Pro. In terms of temperatures, the frame did get decently toasty, and in terms of that temperature, it reached a peak of 53 degrees. And then on Geekbench, we had a single score of 3699 and a multi-core of 11499. Now with Redmagic, gaming is coming into play, and I've been able to play some games here and there, with Genshin Impact running smoothly on it. Again, it's a bit warmer if you are playing for a longer amount of time, but nothing that feels uncomfortable to hold. And I haven't experienced any drops while playing the game whatsoever. Naturally, also playing games like Call of Duty, it was the same experience. And of course with games like Call of Duty and PUBG, it does have kind of a cheat. Those buttons really make it nice to use. And naturally, also playing Call of Duty, it was the same experience. And of course, games like Call of Duty and PUBG, it's kind of a cheat to have those buttons. It makes your screen a bit more free, and there's no way you can actually mess this up in terms of using those buttons. Though I do wish that these buttons had a bit of travel to them, so I feel what I'm actually using. It's also worth noting that I think actually that the case itself somewhat disrupts the use of the buttons itself. I just feel like I'm not on there properly like I am without the case. So in terms of performance, this Redmagic 11 Pro is blazingly fast. But naturally, when it comes to a phone like this, there are things you have to question. How long will the support actually be like? And of course, this is something that is aimed towards that gaming. If you want to play a lot of games on the phone, then this works really well, especially if you are playing shooting games. I think those buttons are really useful to have. But of course, if you are buying a phone like this, camera will be sacrificed, because simply put, when it comes to a phone like this, that focus is clearly not there, and it doesn't have the processing to back it up, like for instance Vivo has or Xiaomi and so on. Here are some samples that I've taken with this Redmagic 11 Pro. Now I wanted to start this video with this awkward angle because you can see the effect of the camera being below the display. Anyway, this is of course the Redmagic 11 Pro, the first phone with liquid cooling and also a very hidden front-facing camera with its limitations. As you can see, quality isn't great. We have 1080p 30 frames per second max. But yeah, let's test out how this performs when it comes to a camera, because that becomes really interesting to see how this gaming orientated phone with the world's first liquid cooling performs when it comes to that. It's gonna be a challenge. One thing that I would definitely advise when it comes to using this Redmagic 11 Pro is use Pro more. You don't necessarily have to tweak a lot with the settings itself to get a better result, but it just looks better in terms of contrast, in terms of the image itself. It looks less processed, so there's some help to be had. Now, when we discuss, of course, recording at 4K 30 frames per second, it looks like you can then switch to the ultra wide, but it doesn't allow you to. I can try as hard as I want, but it doesn't. You can zoom in during video recording, but again, you're cropping in to the main sensor. It's gonna hurt the quality. But yeah, I cannot swap to the ultra wide. Now, just to showcase that 4K 60 frames per second with the ultra wide, the stability of it a little bit. It seems quite unstable on my phone. Love the contrast that we have now with autumn. That's stunning. I'm gonna try to take some shots of that and make it a little bit more dramatic than what it is in reality, but that looks cool. So at the end, the Redmagic 11 Pro is really focused on gaming, and you can definitely tell with its design alone, and of course the liquid cooling that comes with it. You get that lovely 3.5mm headphone jack, and of course you get the side buttons as well. That is a huge benefit for when you are playing shooting games or other games that can really utilize that properly. And it's quite easy to set up as well when it comes to the overall use of it. When it comes to playing games on this phone, yes, it does get warmer, especially in combination with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 5 that simply gets toasty, and of course the way that it's trying to disperse the heat of the phone itself, or the CPU in this case. And I think there you will notice that it does get a little bit warmer. Now, if you want a phone that is really good for the camera, this isn't going to be it. If you want a phone that allows you a little bit of cheating with those buttons on the side when it comes to mobile shooting games, then definitely this is a phone you should consider. And it's one of the highest, if not the highest, when it comes to the scores, if you care about that, because I genuinely don't. Either way, I do hope that you enjoyed the video on the Redmagic 11 Pro. Have a good one, and talk to you guys in the next.